Welcome to this episode of Pathways to Perform. We hope these real stories from real people resonate to help guide you on your path to perform at your very best in any field. Today, I am so honored to bring the most amazing woman on the show. She is the Chief Artistic Administrator and Producing Director of the world-renowned Dayton Contemporary Dance Company. In addition to that, she is a hero of mine. She is an educator and mentor to thousands of young aspiring hopefuls. She is a tremendous asset to the dance community at large and performing arts community at large. I would say that her life is definitely not defined by dance, but it's defined by her passion to tell stories. In addition to that, she is a wonderful wife and an amazing mother to two beautiful daughters. Please welcome someone that I am honored to call my friend, Debbie Blunden Diggs. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Kiesha, girl. Long time no speak. How are you?
I am so happy to see you right now. I'm just giddy. So thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
How you doing, girl? You okay?
I'm making it through. I'm treading water in this, just extremely unexplored way that we're living our lives right now. But, I'm here. I'm standing. I don't have any complaints.
Hey, that makes me happy. Well, I just, want to have a conversation with you today. I really want to get to know Debbie, the side of you that I've gotten to know through several years and have been so honored to spend some just quality time with you. You have been a huge inspiration to me. I don't know what I would do without you, and you know this. So for everyone, thank you for everything you've done for me and everything you continue to do for the industry to launch careers and keep us going. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, but thank you for that.
No, it's the truth. And I don't know that you've been told thanks enough. It's just part of your job, right? You're just supposed to do it. So thank you. But I look back at your career and the history of the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company. We all know that your mom is the legendary Geraldine and what she's done for Dayton and all of these things, that she's the groundwork, right? The trailblazer that she has been. And so for you, with dance being such a part of what she was and what she left behind, do you consider dance part of your kind of organic natural calling, or was it more of an expectation?
Well, it definitely was not an expectation. I talk about it in terms that it's a part of my DNA. I have no idea what life would be like without dance. So I think it is an extremely intimate part of my makeup, but it was never an expectation. It was never, I took dance lessons as a kid because that was part of the education that my parents wanted me to have, the experience. But as I grew older, actually, I didn't even train with my mother in my earlier years.
Okay.
I trained at the Schwartz School of the Dance, Josephina Hermine Schwartz. I think my mother didn't find it prudent to teach her own daughter. And so when I was 12, there was an opportunity to audition for the company. And she kept saying, "Are you sure you want to do this? Is this really what you want to do?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "So I would be teaching you, you would be under my direction all the time." And I'm like, "Yeah, but this is what I want to do." And she's like, "Well, okay then." So I auditioned, and long story short, I was taken into the company along with 8 other dancers. And we were sort of the young group that was being molded. But almost every week for the first year, she was like, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. So, all the way through high school, I was sure that it was what I wanted to do. And then when it's time to graduate from high school, and my other world of friends were talking about where they were going to school and, prepping for college, I'm like, dang, I want to do that. And so I did, and I got accepted into a couple of universities, and I had kind of settled on wanting to go to Dillard University in New Orleans. And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, but no. That means I have to give up this world as I know it. So I didn't go. We stayed here. Probably about the time I was 20 was when the company started earning a stipend for their dancing. And so I'm like, ah, I'm getting paid for this thing I'm dancing to. And so we did it. And, you know, in the way that Geraldine planned and envisioned, we started to have some really significant and important choreographers coming in from New York, coming in from California. So we weren't just working with people from Dayton or even the Midwest. And all of a sudden I got the bug to go to New York. I'm like, so I'm going to New York, because in everybody's mind, and still somewhat to this day, if you don't go to New York, then you're not worth your salt. Now, my own personal opinion is that is absolutely not true.
Right.
There is good dance that happens all across the country.
That's right.
So my parents decided, okay, you can go to New York. We'll treat it like 1 year of college. We will support you in New York for 1 year. And then if you haven't found a path or a route, then you'll have to reevaluate. We'll reevaluate what you're going to do and how you want to get to where you're going. Okay, packed up all my belongings with a really good friend of mine, Dawn, and we moved to New York. Stayed at a woman's residence called the Catherine House. Took classes at the Ailey School, took classes Broadway Dance Center, took classes at Clark Center. Went to some auditions, and I started to check myself when the number on when my audition number was in the 400s, and there were as many people in front of me as behind me, and I'm like, I don't really know if this is how I want to put my life together. That on top of the fact that I was in classes with people that I was equally or better trained as a dancer, and I'm paying for my classes. I don't even have a scholarship. I'm like, what are you doing? And so probably, I don't know, 2 months into this journey, I'm like, well, you know, Mommy, I'm coming home. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? Are you quitting? I said, no, I think I just learned the lesson that I need to learn from here, that I am going to be able to move through this dance space under the tutelage of the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company and get what I need. But more importantly, get what I want. I think a lot of people saw that as me only wanting to operate as a big fish in a little pond, but it wasn't that at all.
Yeah, I definitely don't see it like that.
And so, you know, I came back. I had the opportunity to teach. I had the opportunity to craft, starting at an early age, and all of those things were within my reach, and not because I was her daughter. I mean, a lot of people, you know, are like, well, you kind of have the silver spoon of dance in your mouth. So, you know, so all of those things play, and still to this very day play into my evolution from being a dancer accepted into DCDC at 12 years old to where I am now at 60 years old. And so I had a really wonderful dancing career at DCDC. Got the opportunity to work with major choreographers, got the opportunity to dance some really major roles. A funny story, when choreographers would come, especially in the earlier years when I was still living at home, I was like, look, don't tell those people I'm your daughter. Don't tell, I'm not even going to use my last name, because I really need to be sure that the chances I'm given are based on my own merit.
I love that.
Not because you're the director and you're paying them and they feel some kind of obligation to use me. And so, you know, that was a real challenge for me in wanting to just carve my own path. But back to your original question, no, it was never expected. I think, in fact, she expected me to do something totally different. I think there was even some surprise on her part.
She was probably like, do anything else.
Well, okay, so I have a daughter that dances and I'm like that. Do anything else.
Right. Right.
Do anything else but this. Are you sure? Are you sure? And then finally someone said to me, you gotta let her follow her dream like you were able to follow your dream.
Well, and do you think that some of that is really making sure that you're not pushing her down a direction that she may not want to explore as well?
It's that, but Kiesha, more of it is she's Geraldine's granddaughter
That's
and
true.
she's Debbie's daughter. That's a heavy head game
Yes, it is.
when you're in the dance world. In your own mind, even if nobody else is putting those expectations before you, you're putting them before yourself.
Well, they're self-imposed, and the legacy that both of you have left behind, that makes sense.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it's hard space.
Well, I mean, so thinking about all of those challenges, right? And certainly the epiphanies that you had along the way. I'm sure that you found inspiration and certain people that kept pushing you to keep going. So maybe there was a class in New York, or certainly people in Dayton that kept kind of pulling you back, or you had a natural draw to. Are, is there any one person that was most influential, or because of that journey? And then, you performed for over 20 years.
Yes.
And so because of that, are there many people or different phases? And who would be the people that most influenced and inspired you?
Um, because my exposure to people through DCDC and other things was so rich, there are many people, but there are a couple of people that stand out. And James Truitt is one. He came to us by way of Geraldine saying, you just have to come to Dayton and teach my company. And he happened to end up, he happened to end up in Cincinnati at Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. So he started coming. At first, it was once a month to teach us on Fridays. And I was just in awe of this man, first of all, because he was one of the original members of the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater. And I'm like, oh God, this man is in our studio with us every month. And his teaching style was just so different. He is a Horton dancer. He actually trained with Lester Horton. And so, I mean, he's the original, real, authentic deal.
That's amazing.
And he was a character bigger than life in my head because he looked like Dr. Spock. He had really distinguished eyes and ears, but he sounded like Paul Lynde. So he sounded comedic, and he had a wit that was quick, and he was so worldly and well-traveled. And his classes, from the very first class I took with him to the last time I trained with him, were never just about the technique. They were about all of the stories that go along with it. And I just felt so embraced by hearing those. And over time, Mr. Truitt became a part of our family, like for real. I mean, he became like an uncle to me. He went from teaching us once a month to teaching us every Friday, once a week. He began traveling with us. He began helping to coach some of the new masterworks that we were getting into our repertory. And the most heart-touching story for me is when Raymond and I got married, the first gift that arrived to my house was from Mr. Truitt.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'll never, ever forget that. He held my children. I mean, I just adored him.
Well, and so it was really about his teachings and him being a human as
Yes.
well. And I
Yes.
feel like that's definitely a testament to who you are. You have such a strong anchor and a grounding as a human, which is a rare gift. And we forget as artists that that is a rare gift, you know?
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think the one thing is that I hear over and over again, especially now more than ever, we have all these influences coming our way, whether it's social media and distractions or spectacle or, competitions, The Voice, So You Think You Can Dance, all of these one-offs that make us want something really quick. But then I hear over and over in classes and from artists or from educators, what does it mean to be human as a dancer? What does it mean to be human? Why do we have to remind artists and dancers to be human? I think that's a fascinating thing, just to even have to say that. And so how do you interpret that?
I don't know. And I've probably interpreted it very differently at different points in my life.
Yes.
Um, but I think right now we have to remind ourselves to be human because of the way that we're trained, Kiesha. Think about it. Dancers, from the time you step into a studio at 5, at 3, whatever the age is. I think 3 is too young, but from whatever the age is, you're told exactly what to do and how to do it. How to look, how to wear your hair. You're just told, and so you're in this rhythm of waiting to be told what to do. And let's not, I don't want to sugarcoat it, and my dancers hear me say it all the time. It really still is a dictatorship.
I hear that all the time.
As odd as it sounds,
Yes.
but it is.
Dance is not a democracy.
It
I've
is.
heard that.
It is.
That's right.
And it's not. I mean, if you think about it, and I think as we're trying to evolve in the field, we're trying somewhat, to open that up,
Yeah.
a little bit, so that there is room, for people to be human
I think it's
at
so
the end of
important.
the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just more rewarding for you. It's more rewarding for everyone sharing the space. And it's certainly more rewarding for the audience. You're trying to reach people, provoke thought and emotion and all of those things. And so, you as a performer, what was that like? So trying to reach people and perform, and do you have any greatest, most fond memories of your performance days?
I mean, again, I have a lot. I was lucky enough to be able to dance some masterworks by Donald McHale, by Elio Pomare. And so those moments, particularly those moments of stepping into a role of somebody that had some mega person that had already done the role. We'll take District Storyville, Donald McHale's District Storyville. Judith Jameson danced that role. Donna Wood danced that role. So to be able to dance that role and be good at it, to give a really good performance, to have Mr. McHale say, "Oh my goodness, you brought a new life into the role." I mean, to hear those words from somebody
I love that.
like a Mr. McHale is like, oh, it's like the thing.
Yeah.
Secret. I love performance. I hated class. We talk about, this generation, and I talk about it myself, wanting things instantaneously. You don't just show up in the studio and somebody casts you and you do the performance the next day. There's hours and hours, and the performance part, if you think about it, is probably 15% of what we do.
That's so,
So,
yeah,
we
that's
spend,
interesting. When you look at that percentage,
yeah,
it's so small and you're working for that little tiny bit of reward, but the pain and blood, sweat, tears, as we say, that goes into it certainly outweighs that 10 to 15% of those moments.
it does.
And
It
often
does.
one-offs, right? One-offs, or you get 2 chances and hope it works out well, and you want
And
that
if it doesn't,
perfection.
on to the next thing.
Next thing.
I will
Yeah.
also say that one of the most glorious moments of my career in general is when the company just most recently went to Kazakhstan and Russia. And to actually see the work that we do really transcend human boundaries. We were in places where they didn't speak any of our language, we didn't speak any of their language, but the impact of the art, the impact of the dancers being human, the impact of them telling the stories touched those audiences in a way that I can't even explain it. It was surreal to me.
Well,
It was surreal.
but so for me, that's a testament to who you are, your leadership, your vision, your artistic integrity. You are human. And so from that, you built this repertoire to bring with you that you thought would resonate and certainly reach people, you know, breaking the language barrier, but reaching them through the human spirit. And I knowing you it's a testament to who you are and your leadership and your vision. So kudos to you as well. But that also, I don't know that people realize that you can curate a season, you can curate this amazing show, then it goes down to the dancers. You hand select the right kind of people for the right place at the right time to deliver the right message. All of these things matter. And you have a really, really magnificent hand in carving out the vision for what you're trying to just present, you know. So thank you for that.
I mean, I think it's important. I mean, you know, I don't know how many of your dancers you've told the story too about our first initial interaction. I mean, you were after me for years and years.
5 years. 5 years, everybody. So my dream was always to choreograph on the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, and I had a few students from Point Park transition to become professional dancers with the company. And I would submit this, you know, my reel, and then submit my next piece. And I met Debbie when I was at Wright State, and I had choreographed there. And then Gina came up to me and said, "This has to happen. I have to connect you to her." But one of the defining moments in my career, when people do ask me, and I talk to kids about resilience and persistence and staying in it, you know, persevere, keep going, keep going, keep going. I was sitting outside in the park. Here comes the story. And I was outside at Point Park having coffee. You called my cell and said, "We're ready for you. It's time. Would love to have you come choreograph on the company." Tears rolling down my face. Kelly Hodges, dear friend of mine, was sitting next to me. She's looking at me, probably thinking something was wrong. And I just, the joy, the chance because of you. And so I forever, forever grateful for everything you've done for me personally and professionally. But yeah, I think it's all part of it. It's a process. You don't snap your fingers one day. And it really is about never giving up, you know, and you can certainly speak to that. I mean, were there times in your career, whether performer or whether shifting into artistic director, that you just were overwhelmed and wanted to quit and just give up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I am, you know, I'm now one of the oldest people in the room when I'm in a room. I'm finding myself in that space. And so this is my 47th year being with Dayton Contemporary Dance Company. And certainly there were many times I was plagued with knee injuries. And so it's like,
Mhm.
can I keep pushing through this? I will have to say there have been two hardest moments. The first hardest moment actually was when we lost Geraldine when she transitioned in 1999. We were prepared. Kevin Ward and I had been more than prepared to take the organization forward. And Kevin became artistic director, and that is what the plan was. That's what it was supposed to be. But I had to decide whether I could work there without her. I had worked in that organization with her all of my dance life.
That's interesting.
And I didn't know if I could or if I wanted to. And neither one of those factors had anything to do with Kevin Ward taking over artistic leadership. He was a brilliant artistic director. I just didn't know if I could do that, continue to do this work without her here. And so I said that to Kevin. We talked, and he said, "Okay, and so you need to take the time you need and find out if you can." He said, "But you can't do that away from here. You won't know that by stepping away from here and deciding. You can only know by being here and being in it and understanding if you can." And it was really hard. It was really hard having to go in there and see her office and her not in it. It was really hard to not, you know, have her say what she would say to the dancers backstage, to a performance, all of those things that happen. And so I went through a year, and it was a rough cycle for me. But at the end of the year, I decided that, oh yes, this is not only where I want to be, it's where I'm supposed to be. And so he allowed me in his I don't know, wisdom to let me work through it, knowing that he's not going to have 100% of me all the time, but also knowing that I couldn't figure this out without being there.
I think that is, I just think that is quite responsible, right? And aware. Pay attention to how you really feel. And I hear it so often, I want this, I want this, I want this. And my follow-up question is, do you really want it? Because when you really want something, it can happen. But when you get confused and you think you want it, you really have to understand what goes into chasing that. And so
And I think you have to know why you want it.
That's why. That is, why do you want it? And it has to fit, like you said, the right time. Was it the right time for you to step in? You needed those moments to reflect and see the transition happen. And I think that was definitely the best thing for you, and certainly for the company, was just kind of pausing and making sure the why was attached to the want.
Right.
I think that's really important. And so when you did transition as artistic director, what were some of the first, I'd say, challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome those? That's a big, big responsibility, stepping into any artistic director's shoes. There's a lot going on. You're juggling board, you're juggling artistic integrity, you're judging your voice, right? Casting
Right.
dancers. What choreographers do you want to bring in? What does that look like? What does the season look like? How do we raise money? It's not people, I wear many hats. That's what a lot of people say. But an artistic director is one gigantic hat of a whole bunch of different responsibilities. And, you know, how and how did you do it?
Well, I mean, the answer is I don't know. I think my own personal life motto is you keep stepping forward until you can't anymore. But I'm the third seated artistic director. Kevin held that role for 8 years, and again curated some really lovely dancer artists that were connected to Kevin, and repertory that he curated, you know, and that was wonderful. And, so when he decided, which by the way was a surprise, when he decided that it was time for him to move on, I'm gonna be really honest. What I thought was that it was going to be a simple transition and he just passed the baton to me.
Okay.
But I found out differently that the board at that time felt that no, that's not the natural transition, even though it was and it was meant to be, but that I would have to interview in a pool of candidates.
Wow, I did not know this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, which really didn't go over well with me too well.
No, of course
And
not. And it seems like a natural progression, but I feel like, did you ever see that line, the path and then success is here, and then it shows you the real path is this one?
yes,
There's
and
squigglies all
so
over. That's
that's what
exactly
it
it.
was.
It was like, oh, let's go this way first. But again, probably a testament to why, right? And you really wanting it. So fighting through that, or walking through that fire, if you will. So you
And I
interviewed.
did. And I had some advice because, of course, me, when me, your our viewers don't know me, but I'm like, oh, forget all of that. If I'm not doing this. I've been here all my life. I am exactly the right person for this job right now. I'm not saying forever, but I'm saying right now I am. And so I went to our executive director, who had just been in her seat for 2 years, Juanita Hall Saunders, and I'm like, you know what? Forget this. I am not doing this. This is wrong. I'm not throwing my name into the hat because there should be no hat. And she's like, I hear you, and you're right. However, if you say that out loud, it gives them every reason to go right past you.
Hmm.
Every reason. So you can't say that. She's like, hear me again. You're right. You shouldn't have to, but. So I did. I'll never forget this. I was working in the office the day that I was supposed to interview with two board members in Ronita. I had to set up for the interview. I had to set the room up for the interview.
Okay, that is ironic, if you
It was
will.
ironic, and it was interesting. Um, but it was my lesson in the path is not always straight. The path is like this, and it doesn't always happen
That's right.
the way that you picture it happening. But then, I felt that I was in this space of all eyes on me. I got to prove every minute of every day why. And the first 3 years was really kind of rocky. And the whole first year, I said to myself and then out loud to some close friends, this is not the job I thought I was getting. I thought I was going to be able to go in the studio and create whatever I wanted to create. And it was not that. It was all the other things that you mentioned.
Business.
It was the meetings, and it's
Budgets.
the budgets, and it's the
That's right.
raising money, and it's
That's right.
all of the technical support that goes into driving the art. And what I've learned, this is my 14th year now as artistic director, is as long as those things drives the art, as long as those things drive the art, I'm willing to step into it as much as I have to.
Well, and in time you learn that all of those contribute to the much bigger picture,
Yes.
and I think that I hear a few times I've had great conversations with artistic directors is that you no longer take advantage or take for granted the idea of creating. So when you are in the studio and you get those moments to kind of hands-on be with the artist and be in the space and be within the creative process, that's when you remember this is why I'm doing this. And so, with that 14 years, what drives you? You keep going, and are there within your 14 years, I think the better question would be, what are you most proud of? Are there any specific projects that you've done? I know you mentioned the international tours you've done going to Kazakhstan and some of these other things that I'm aware of, but is there, one or two that really stand out to you that you just couldn't believe you did it and then you actually loved it?
Yeah, there was a moment in time that I didn't realize that I had taken the time to curate such a wonderful room of artists, that we were dancing pieces that were set on somebody else. They were dancing pieces in the repertory that were built for dancers 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago. And I'm like, I want to create content for these dancers and I didn't say to myself, oh, I'm going to curate a room full of fantastic artists. It was just what I saw in my eye over probably a 3-year span of auditioning and people leaving the company and coming back to the company. I looked at this group and I'm like, this is a freaking special group of dancers. I want dance created on them, for them. And actually, Shed was one of the first pieces in that collection.
Well, and I think your comment to me was, we're ready for you. And I didn't understand it at the time. And even now I'm sitting here processing. And I thought to myself, this was when I went in and set Shed. And there was a magic in that space, camaraderie and organic connection. It's serendipitous, right? It just, like you said, you realized what was in the room and wanted to start creating something for them.
Right.
And they're tremendous artists, and it happened, and But do you think, again, a testament to you and your selective process and getting the right people in the room, and then it finally came together probably, right?
Yeah, it did. It's so funny. Crystal Michelle, who is one of my associate artistic directors, says to me quite often, she's like, I don't know what goes on inside your brain, but you see stuff in people before they even know that they have that available to them themselves. People, people ask me all the time what I look for in an audition, and I think my answer surprises them. I don't, the it is rarely the most technically proficient dancer in the room that I offer a contract to.
That's right.
Rarely. It's the dancer that shows me something special of themselves. It's the human thing. It goes back to the human thing. I mean, we can teach anybody steps. We can teach anybody steps, but the way in which you communicate those steps is what's important to me. And I know young dancers are going to hate to hear this, I still cringe in my seat when I go to a performance and people hoop and holler because somebody has an extension that goes up by their ear.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but what else?
But what else? And it's the justification of how that leg got there. It's the
Exactly.
performance from within, and it's the storytelling. But I mean, in all the different arenas I've been blessed to choreograph for, your company is the one that tells the story the best. And that again circles back to you and what you are attracted to, but that's also our connection. We are
It
the same
is.
kind of person. And so I feel as if you knew what was coming. And then when I got in that space, it was just so easy for me to do it. And it just felt so right. And that's when magic happens, like we said. And so for you, I mean, sure, concert works. There's so many dances that you've created. But I think what a lot of people don't know is your interest in everything else, right? So movies, television, musical theater,
Yeah.
plays. So tell me, and our lunches and our hanging out together and just kind of going to dinner, I hear you speak about projects that you're working on or that are inspiring you. And oftentimes it's not concert dance. That's normal, right? That's a
Right.
given. But outside of that, tell me more about your other interests because I think it's important that people know.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the people who influenced me in my career was Mike Malone. Mike Malone is out of DC, and I think he is the one, he and Elio Pomare and Donna McKell opened my eyes to storytelling, and they all told stories through dance in different ways. But Mike Malone had this wonderful fusion of beautiful concert dance and theater. And I've always kind of leaned in to his works, the works he said on the company, the projects that the company did with him a couple of times that weren't just main stage concert dance. And I have a love for musical theater. I have a love for Broadway theater. In my mind, it's like, okay, that's really what I want to do. I want to go to New York and I want to do theater. But that's when I found myself in the line of 800 people. And I'm like, maybe not. But because DCDC in my growing up and what I try to keep alive and vital now is an environment where you can try stuff. You can you when you come to us and I contract you as a dancer, that's what your contract says you are. But if you have an interest in teaching, we try to give you a platform to develop that. If you want to create, we try to give you a platform to help develop that. And so I have been able over the years to connect with some college programs that have theater, um, some community projects that have theater, that I can bring my resources and the way I vision movement into the practice of theater. And so actually, as I'm thinking about what my third act will be, I very much would like to direct and executive produce some projects. And so I'm looking around for opportunities to do that, bringing what I have. And I know this is going to sound weird because I'm going to talk about another one of the projects that we did together. But the bench for me was everything. It was everything because of that.
You'll make me cry.
And trying to get everybody in my organization, I mean, everybody at first on board. Why would we want to do this? Because it's beautiful, because it's different, because it shows a different facet of who we are. When the curtain went up at the Victoria Theater, when we premiered that piece, it was everything. And I when I'm in the costume room now fishing around, the costumes are racked and the costumes are covered, and I'm like, we got to do that again. We got to find a way to be able to do that again. And I think the everything portion of it comes from the fact that it blended the two worlds that I am so passionate about together. It just blended it.
Well,
So I'm
also
trying to
blended
move
us.
myself.
But I will contribute some of this to you as well. As much as, you know, I had this vision and was working on it, you were with me all the way. You know, what if, Debbie, I'm thinking about this or this and that, and talking through it and telling you what I needed. You fully supported the entire vision. You got it. You understood this crazy idea of doing a full evening work that integrated storytelling, lyrics. Could you imagine lyrics, projection, right?
Yeah.
The whole design of it is a gigantic, uh, it's not a musical. We call it a dancicle if we should, or whatever it is. It's a dance theater piece.
Yep.
And so people become afraid, right? That's the first thing, fear. And it's new and it's different. And how can we? But I'll never forget looking at you. We were standing in the back of the theater. I didn't know if people were going to like it. I had no idea what was going to happen. They jumped up out of their seats and I looked at you. You looked at me and we were like, yeah, you just,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And we just knew. And I have felt that moment twice in my life, ironically enough. One was shed. You walked up to me, high-fived me, and you made me go on stage, and I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened for, I feel like this version of the bench compared to the original in 2009 was just an impossible feat. We kept looking at it and we're told no and no and no, and the obstacles that we overcame were much more challenging than the original in 2009. But we did it, and we did it together. And I also feel like the word collaboration is necessary. And often, you know, in this industry, it's more individual, right? It's
Right.
There's an agenda, or there's some other person is like me, but you have to put ego to the side and make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons. And so much of that was for, you know, the DCDC company, your vision and what you wanted to see come through. And so it works when you kind of let go of you and your personal agenda.
It does.
Magic can happen, you know. And so, like, what kind of other projects are you interested in? What's next for you then? Like, looking forward to a changing, shifting industry, right? And I'm sure this time, knowing you, you've been reflecting and just kind of thinking more about how you can make an impact in this current situation. But what's next? I mean, what are you thinking?
Well, you know, we always got some stuff on the burners. We are, as everybody is, moving into this digital content world of dance. When people say, oh, this is where we're going to go, I'm like, no, this is not where we're going to be forever. Dance is built to be performed live, and it's built for people to experience the energy and emotion. But in the meantime, we will hone our digital art making, dance making craft. And so I'm really interested in looking at dancing for the camera or dancing for film,
Nice.
and how that is different than dancing on stage, just in front of a live audience. So really, you know, exploring those avenues while we have the room to do it, trial and error, and trying to come up with some methodology that allows us to continue to curate dance in the way that we're known for at DCDC, but from a different lens, if you might dance for the camera. The other thing is I am a true collaborator naturally. I just am, and have 95% have had great collaborative journeys. I mean, there's always a couple that you're like, but I am embarking on one now with a sculptor who does these huge, humongous size sculptures that are of the earth. Like he sculpts out of wood and stone a lot. And so we're looking to hopefully, and I'm not saying names because I don't want to expose too much yet, but we're looking to build this project, and it's called Convergence. It's where the dance and sculpture converge, but we're building it in a different manner. I'm not building it for the proscenium stage. I'm building it so it crosses the line of an exhibit space and a dance space. So we're looking to build it in warehouse spaces with very intimate audiences, small size audiences, 150, 200 people max, where you actually come in and experience the exhibit and the dance in one big hug. So that's where a lot of my energy is going right now. Just trying to survive this pandemic like everyone else.
Yeah.
But surely for me, the passion for the art and the energy from my artists is what drives me and gets me through the day.
Well, and so even with the COVID challenges, another challenge that I hope we can talk about is this social unrest in this country right now. And so not only are you facing COVID, there's an underlying unrest. How do you feel about kind of moving forward and navigating this?
Well, I mean, I think as a 52-year-old institution, there's no choice. Okay. So again, going back to the roots, this legacy stands on the shoulder of a woman, Geraldine, who started this company in the 60s, right in the middle of the civil rights movement. And so I think that our response to it is the work we do. It is the work we do. So we have to continue to do the work that we do. And we have to continue to, I'm in conversations about this all the time. So, my friends are like, well, it's better. I'm like, no, it's not better. And let me just be really clear with you. What we saw unfold in the media happens every day. Those incidents just happen to be caught on camera. So no. It's not gone away. In fact, I think the fire has been stoked on it. A little, not a little bit. I think the fire has been stoked on it greatly. And so we have to have a response. I have to have a response as an individual person, Debbie Blunden Diggs, living in about to be 2021, and how I feel about that. And because I am the chief artistic director of a dance company, then that means my art in some shape or form has to respond to that. When everybody was making statements in the beginning, written statements, we saw them every day, came out from every corporation, every company. There was internal conversation in my organization about, well, we should write a statement. I'm like, no, we should not write a statement. We should not write a statement. We should broadcast a piece that makes a statement. Because that's what we do. That's who we are. We don't have to say the words because we embody and we live the words. So, for all the dance students out there, if you've never seen Rainbow Around My Shoulder, watch it. Watch the piece. It's iconic. And every time we get the opportunity to do it, what makes me so sad is the subject matter is as volatile today as it was when Donald McKell created the piece. So I think our art helps us speak to what's going on. You know, you watch the news, I watch the news, it's still there all day, every day.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what's most disheartening is what you said, is that nothing's changed. I mean,
Nothing.
we're still here, and that is the most troubling, heartbreaking kind of reality, is that we're still here. And so, I moving forward for you, you're just kind of surrounded by challenge after challenge after challenge right now. Challenge and more challenges. So, you'll get through them. You always do. I know you. It's what it is. You got to keep going, right? And so I tell people all the time, the path might not be clear, but you got to keep going. And if you
Right.
keep going, you'll ultimately get to where you have to go, whether it's one little project or whether it's a span of a lifetime. But you will get to that destination. And so you've talked a lot about your successes and different kinds of projects and people that influenced you. What do you want your legacy to be? So if I were to kind of step back and say, Debbie, what is that legacy that you wish that you leave behind?
That's a hard question, Kiesha.
I know.
I think I want people to say that I made a difference, period. And that difference could fall in any category. It doesn't have to be just attached to dance, even though that's where my life centers itself right now. I just want people to believe that I've made a difference for them in some kind of way.
Well, and I think that is exactly what you're doing and absolutely can validate that as one artist and a person that is familiar with your circle. But you make a difference every single day, and just such an honor to call you my friend and a mentor and my sister, and the list is endless, and the boys send their love to you, and I hope the girls are doing good, and we have to do this more often.
We do.
But if there's anything you ever want to talk about, please let me know and we'll bring you back. You're going to be back lots. You're going to be like, Kiesha,
Okay,
not again, not again. And I'm going to say, yes, again.
we'll do it.
But I honestly, I value everything you stand for and everything you have done for so many. And I hope that you realize the profound impact you have on the arts as a whole, but then as the individual artist, just, you know, my reality is that I would be nowhere without you. And I feel like there are many people that will say that. And so I can't thank you enough. You are a tremendous, beautiful, beautiful human being. So thank you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Kiesha. This has really been quite life-changing to have this conversation with you on this day in this time where we are in just where we are.
Yeah,
So thank you.
thank you. Please take care of yourself. And for everyone out there, please don't forget that everything is possible. It's your time. Go get it. And don't ever give up. All right.
All
Thank you,
right.
Debbie. And we'll
You're
talk to you
welcome.
soon. All right.
Okay.
Take
All right.
care. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.